You know, I'm a pretty open-minded guy. I champion social issues fairly often. I reside somewhere left of center. I have lots of life experience, and I like to think of myself as relatively literate.
Hello, princess.
When it comes to propaganda and government influence. And that very well-established foundation and sense of self absolutely crumbles away the moment I read a really good military sci-fi book. The moment you give me badass human military units going out and fighting badass aliens and winning and saving the day and conquering and expanding the domain of humanity, all of those beliefs that make up myself as a person absolutely crumble away. It makes me realize I am not immune to propaganda. I just haven't been fed the right propaganda yet. Welcome back to Orbiting the Shelf, where today I am talking about my guilty pleasure book and possibly my favorite book of all time. Wait a second. I see you picking your nose. No. Don't take that finger out of your nose now. You leave it there. I know who you are. I know what you're doing in your free time, you dirty nose picker. But don't worry, your secret's safe with me, so long as you like and subscribe and stay tuned in for at least most of the video. Then I will forget what I saw, I'll forget whatever happened, and I absolutely will not tell anybody that you're a dirty nose picker. And probably a booger eater. But that's okay. I'm a good guy. I know. You don't have to thank me. Calm down. With that being said, I'm talking about my absolute favorite guilty pleasure book and possibly my favorite book of all time. And before we get started, I know what you're thinking. Orbiting the Shelf, coming at you bald.
Oh my gosh! She's bald! She's bald and she's torturing people who have hair!
Shiny, freshly shaved head, nice and grippy. Because if you notice, I have two ring lights, and they really like to reflect off of my pale bald head. So I usually wear a hat, but it's whatever. We're raw dogging it today. We're letting the boys breathe. It's really hot in Southwest Colorado right now. But with that out of the way, if I asked you what your favorite book was, what would you say? And I know most of you are racking your head for the classics right now. You want to say Lord of the Rings, Dune, you want to say Lord of the Flies, you want to say The Wheel of Time, you want to say something that makes you sound like a refined gentleman with a distinguished palate, a man or woman with absolutely exquisite tastes. You want to be known as a scholar, a gentleman, a gentle lady, a gentle they. You want to be known as someone with taste, with refinement, with class. So you rack your brain and you say Hyperion by Dan Simmons. You say Dune by Frank Herbert. But I know you. I know your real favorite book is some trash. I know your favorite book isn't Where the Red Ferns Grow. I know your favorite book isn't To Kill a Mockingbird. Your favorite book is probably something like Silver Elite or a Colleen Hoover book, you dirty dog. But that's okay. I won't tell anybody. But I'll tell you what my real favorite book is. My real favorite book is Galaxy's Edge. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, I have never heard of this book in my entire fucking life. And fair enough, I guarantee you probably haven't. The only reason I know what this book is because of COVID. Well, the series, rather. This is a Mil-Scifi book, and Mil-Scifi is probably one of the only genres left that's like mostly men. Mil-Scifi is dominated by like 99.99% men and like one confused woman who accidentally stumbled into it.
I can't see what this is about. Where the fuck is everyone?
But the reason I say that is because the only reason I know what this book is because during my tenure in the Army, as a young man and an underperforming skater, I was confined to my barracks room for 6 months because COVID was going around killing a bunch of people, and I had absolutely nothing to do other than playing video games. And, you know, I've said on this channel before that the book that got me back into reading was Star Splitter, but the book that laid the foundation for that book to get me back into reading was Galaxy's Edge. Now, this book book had a crazy marketing push in like 2019, 2020, I want to say. Probably 2020, right at the start of COVID. And it ran for like a year. And every single day I'd get on Facebook back when I still had that. And I'd scroll through boomer minion memes and AI generated political memes. And in between every single post, I would see Galaxy's Edge, Galaxy's Edge. The galaxy is a dumpster fire. Based on experiences in the 75th Ranger Regiment. Written by Jason Onspach. Co-written by Nick Cole. Galaxy's Edge. Look at this cool thing. Buckets, space, lasers, tanks, aliens, colonialism. And I saw these ads every day for so long that I broke. I was like, you know what? It's on sale for like $3 on Kindle, and I read it on my iPhone. I'll just go ahead and give it a shot. So I download this book, and it starts off with "The galaxy is a dumpster fire." I'm reading it, and I end up absolutely falling in love with it. Now, before you rush to buy this book, because I said it's my favorite book of all time, keep in mind this is a guilty pleasure book, and the reasons I fell in love with it are deeply personal. The authors, I don't think any of them are like directly veterans. I think maybe Nick Cole was directly a veteran, and then I think Jason Onspach is like the son of a veteran, but they did their research, they clearly knew what they were talking about, and they absolutely nailed the tone of the book. They nailed the air of being in a firefight, they nailed military movement, they nailed the jargon, and what's most important is they nailed the brotherhood. They nailed how men in the military interact with each other. They nailed just that core component, and it was so cathartic to read, and I felt so seen, and I was like, man, I absolutely love this series. So I went ahead and spent like another $18 getting the next 3 books that had been out at that time, and I read them, got out of the army, was no longer restricted to my barracks, and I spent the rest of COVID in college. I ended up revisiting this series not too long ago, and I absolutely crushed, I want to say like 10 audiobooks in a couple of weeks. The narrator for the audiobooks is absolutely freaking fantastic. I'll pin him right here. He narrates quite a few things, and he is so good at what he does. I would highly recommend the audiobooks over the written books for this series. And really what made me want to make this video is just the thought of like, what is your favorite book really? Is it something on paper that makes you look cool, makes you look smart? Because chances are probably not. You know, if you ask me my favorite book, more often than not, I'd probably say Ender's Game. And I'd talk about how it shaped my views as a young man and introduced me to things like war and colonialism and sort of the issues that go hand in hand with those things. But really, deep down, it would be Galaxy's Edge. And when I explain in read and review videos what a 10 is, and I say it sets the bar for the genre, it's something I come back and think about often, even its flaws are good. This is what I mean. I don't think by any means that Galaxy's Edge sets the bar for the genre, but I do think it spoke to me so deeply that I still think about it to this day. And in fact, it's the only book I have ever bought merch for. Alright, Exhibit A right here. Check this out. I got this sweet Moto hoodie from their website in a crisp 3XL because your boy is extra thick. And there were more than a few times I wore that hoodie out in public. I wore it to the gym. I'm a big power lifter, but I wore it out to dinner. And when I was out wearing it, there was more than a few times salty old timers would come up to me. You know, those angry Gen X Desert Storm dudes. You know how they are. They would sort of test the waters and be like, "You a veteran? What unit were you in? What unit is that?" And I always love it because I'd be like, well, first of all, this is from a book. I'm sorry to say, but like KTF 100 and whatever it was, 131st, isn't a real unit. It's a sci-fi series. You can Google it. But second of all, I'll have you know, I hail from the elite special operations unit of 3rd Infantry Division in Fort Stewart, Georgia. And they'd be like, oh yeah? And then, you know, you have to have the pissing contest where you prove, you know, well, what was your MOS? What unit were you in? What was your address? That hoodie is a potential stolen valor douchebag magnet for sure. But, you know, this book just spoke to me on such a deep level. And if you went through and read it, you'd be like, Matt, this is f***ing trash. What are you on about? This is just a self-published Mil-Scifi dude bro jerk fest. And I'd be like, absolutely it is. But there's probably not a week that goes by, and I won't spoil it for you just in case you ever want to read it. There's not a week that goes by where I don't think to myself about a certain character death that hits really hard, about the loss of brotherhood, the loss of friendship, the way that these men in this field deal with grief, the sort of, and I'm not sure if the author portrays it this way on purpose, but the way in which they continue on and they persevere, and the only way they have to cope is to go deeper into their job. And this book is really what gave me such a deep appreciation for authors who do their research, authors who care, authors who represent instead of exploit, authors who walk fine lines carefully. In all fairness, I stopped reading this series, I want to say around book 10 or 11, because if you ever read it, a few books in, you're going to go, okay, this was a solid natural stopping point for this series to end. It didn't need to go any further. And if you read past that, you're going to go, oh my gosh, we have devolved from a really awesome, original, unique, fun Mil-Scifi series to a blatant Star Wars ripoff, or a blatant Dune ripoff, depending on your fucking ball knowledge. But no, it's a blatant Star Wars ripoff past like book 6 or something like that, I want to say. So I stopped reading it, and recently I've been thinking about picking it up again, but I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is why I always tell you my reviews are subjective, because I might call a book dog shit, and then you go and read it and you're like, this fat bald goober has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. I'm gonna go absolutely drag orbiting the shelf on his comments in Reddit and wherever else. He has a book coming out, I'm gonna bomb it on Goodreads. So that's why I always hedge my bets and say, hey man, one man's trash is another man's treasure. I would bet for every one person that absolutely loves this book, there's probably 4 or 5 who hate it. I think this book unabashedly caters to a very specific audience. It knows who that audience is, it markets to them very well, and it speaks to them. And I believe it does so at the cost of sales, it does so at the cost of marketability, it does so at the cost of being traditionally published. And this book is precisely why I will never discount indie books, I will never discount self-published books. This book changed my mind on those communities in of itself. I don't think any other book, aside from like back when ML Wong was still self-published, could have done that for me. So when you hear me say a book is amazing, take it with a grain of salt. When you hear me say a book is trash, take it with a grain of salt, or 10. And the next time someone asks you what your favorite book is, be real. Tell them what your favorite book is. I don't think your favorite book has to be a classic. And that's sort of a mindset that I think will hold you back as a reader, hold you back as an author even, if any writers are out there watching this, and give that goofy book a chance. Anyways, that's all I have to say. I haven't been doing a whole lot of reading this week because I am in the trenches of editing, and I've just been spending a solid 10, 11 hours a day right here in this chair typing away. But I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. If you made it all the way to the end, mucho gracias. Mucho gracias, amigo. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.